legislative session starts in a little more than a week, and there are a lot of big issues likely to be discussed. We're going to track what happened in Tallahassee closely this year, and one item that caught our eye was a bill, House Bill 17, that was introduced last week that would place tight limits on lawsuits filed by people who are injured or families of those that lose loved ones. Those include limits on health care expenses and a $1 million limit to compensate for pain, suffering, or disfigurement. Supporters say it is necessary to help reduce the cost of health care and keep insurance affordable, but not everyone sees it that way. Joining me this morning is Tiffany Faddis with the Florida Justice Association. The Florida Justice Association. That sounds like a very powerful name, like you should have some sort of secret lair where you plan your secret society of justice for all.
Well, and that I agree with that. And it's all about justice. That's why we do what we do. It's a great organization.
All right, but in full disclosure, it's also the Trial Lawyers Association, right?
Yes, so the organization is made up of lawyers, and the majority of them are trial lawyers. So our job is to go in the courtroom and fight the good fight for our clients.
All right. So what is your concern? What is your fear out of what you see coming out of Tallahassee these days?
Well, you know, unfortunately, we see this year after year. This is nothing new. It's just that the insurance companies have an agenda, and that agenda is what can we do to save more money? You know, the reality is that you see insurance companies wanting to have you protected. You're looking for the insurance company to be there for you when you need them. And that's what they try to do. That's their job. You see all these great advertisements on TV and how, you know, they want to be there at your side. But the reality is that when you do need your insurance company, you need them to be there for you in a time of need. And it doesn't matter whether it's the negligence or wrongdoing of another, or it's a homeowner's claim and something's happened to your home following a hurricane, and we've obviously experienced many of those in Florida. And then you find yourself in a position where they're not really there for you like you thought they were going to be, and then the sad reality sets in that it's really just a money-making business.
Now, obviously, as I said, the insurance companies would argue that they're trying to fight against fraudulent claims, that they're trying to keep the cost of insurance at a reasonable rate, that, you know, that if juries go out of control and award too much money, then it creates a rampant system. They would also argue that you're stating the position you are, because if there aren't caps on or limits, then the more money that juries award, the higher your fees are and the more money you collect.
Well, I'd have to strongly disagree with that, because we have a civil jury system and we have a civil system that we have judges that have either been appointed by the governor, or there are judges who have been elected by their communities, and they're there to make sure that there aren't any claims that are fraudulent that will get through the system. And juries are made up of Floridians. These are people who are performing their civil service, being asked to be a juror, being asked to analyze the evidence and the testimony that's presented to them, and they are the decision makers.
So it's
not
a
the
question
insurance
of
company.
Who do you trust? Do you trust people to decide your fate, or do you want the insurance companies deciding your fate?
Great question. We want people to decide the fate, and putting a cap on any type of damages is, you know, it's against anything that we would want to, you know, believe in and strive for.
So why did you become a lawyer?
You know, I became a lawyer because I had a personal life story. My middle brother, Troy, was in a terrible car accident when I was very young. And I had to see my mom, the true warrior. And my brother's a hero because he's still here with us. But he was in a coma for 4 months. And this was my first encounter with insurance companies. My mom battled insurance companies day in and day out. When he wasn't able to walk or talk, they would send him back home and tell my mom, he's at maximum medical improvement, when he needed so much rehabilitation. And I saw her fight
How
the
old were you
insurance
at the
company.
time?
Well, 11 turning 12.
And that had
Yeah.
an impact on you?
Absolutely. It had a tremendous impact on me, and I believe that I do what I do because I feel like I want to be a voice for a person who's been wronged. And I feel it in my heart. I feel like I was meant to do this. And then being a part of the Florida Justice Association is extraordinary, because not only do I have the opportunity to be the great lawyer I want to be for my client, to do the right thing, but I also can be a part of an organization that furthers the mission of making sure people have access to courts, that people have a voice up in Tallahassee, that we're making sure that we're fighting bad reform so that anyone who hasn't been through any negligence of another or wrongdoing, that they will make sure and be protected when they are in a time of need, when they need to go to their insurance company and say, I need you to be there for me.
One of the issues that often comes up is in the area of medical malpractice.
Yes.
That you end up seeing more and more doctors, because of the cost of medical malpractice insurance, opting not even to be insured and to move forward with that, posting a sign in their waiting room saying, you know, because of the high cost of insurance, I do not have medical malpractice insurance. I guess, again, going back to the notion of, is part of the reason why that's the case because of what they would consider outrageous judgments being awarded against them, that's what's causing the rates for insurance companies to protect doctors from being, that's what keeps it so high?
No, I would have to disagree with it. I think that the reason why you may see doctors decide to do that, which I think they shouldn't do that, they should protect themselves too. But at the same time, if they have done something that's negligent, it's not that they intentionally meant to do something, there's got to be a means to take care and protect their patient.
And what do you see when doctors opt not to have the insurance and they get hit with a major case? They just declare bankruptcy? What ends up happening?
Well, it just depends on the situation and the circumstances. But, you know, medical malpractice itself is a totally different area of the law. It has its own statute, and there is a vigorous set of avenues that one has to go through in order to give the doctor notice that something that doctor did was negligent. And experts have to be hired, and then the jury ultimately decides. So if there's a judgment awarded against a doctor, it's because the Floridians who are serving as jurors, you know, they made a decision based on the evidence that was presented and based on the testimony.
You consider this consumer protection, what
Yes.
you're doing. Tell me why.
Every day, day in and day out, because a consumer is a person. Floridians are people, and we're here to protect them. And my job is, and if they come to me and they ask and seek my assistance, then I'm going to do what I do best. And I'm a trial lawyer, and I'm going to go in that courtroom and I'm going to fight the good fight.
How much of this is politics, though, to the extent that we're often sort of see insurance companies tend to support Republicans, trial lawyers tend to support Democrats. Right now in Tallahassee, Republicans control the legislature, so insurance companies have a much better field of play for them, and you're just on the short end of it because trial lawyers supporting Democrats, you're out in the woods right now.
Well, and I think that that's clearly not the case, because people would be surprised to know that there are many trial lawyers that are Republicans and Democrats. We are a very diverse group of people, just like Floridians in the state of Florida. They're all diverse. And they elected their legislatures in their communities because they're going to be a voice for them. So they expect their legislators to be the voice of their own constituents up in Tallahassee.
Well, how powerful is the voice of the insurance companies?
Well, they hire hundreds and hundreds of lobbyists to go up in Tallahassee and support these bills that are going to take away Floridians' rights to be compensated for situations that they've either been wronged by the negligence of another, or, like, again, a homeowner's claim where they have suffered property damage as a result of a natural catastrophe, a hurricane. So, yeah, the insurance company has a lot of lobbyists in Tallahassee.
It's funny, I was looking at the claims for Hurricane Irma, and only about half of them were, a little more over half were paid, about a third were denied, and the rest are still sort of pending. And among those that were paid, I know most of them did not pay for full amounts, paid for only partial settlement on those claims. Mm-hmm. Are we seeing any movement when it comes to trying to tighten that up, or is it just going the other direction you're fearing?
Well, I think that we're just continuing the efforts to fight up in Tallahassee for the rights of homeowners. I mean, that's what it comes down to make sure that homeowners are protected. And if they have to make a claim, that they are going to be permitted to do that through the civil justice system.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, Tiffany, you stopped short there. I was expecting you to go a little longer. But Tiffany, I really do appreciate your coming in. And if people want to read more information, is there a website for the Florida Justice Association?
Yeah, so you can go on Google and you can put Florida Justice
We'll find
Association.
it. We'll put it on the bottom of our screen here as well.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for having us.
Tiffany, thank you very much for coming in. All right, we'll be right back after the break.